Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'll give it a couple more minutes for everyone who wants to join in, if they're just getting the notification or whatnot, to go ahead and watch. But for those of you who are here, my name is Varun Patel. I go by Blue Hen Coding on TikTok, and this here is my first event as a Replit rep. So as you've probably seen from the promotional material that I've put out, we're going to be making a sort of solar eclipse time lapse using pictures that NASA has sort of accumulated over the years. So actually, while I give it a couple more seconds for folks to join, I'll open up a little demo so it's a little easier to see what it looks like. Just give me 1 second. All right, check this out. Cool transition, right? So here we have a bunch of space images of NASA across the years. And you'll see this black spot right here is actually a solar eclipse that happened on March 9th, 2016. And we'll be using our NASA API or NASA images to make something very similar to this. So it looks cool. Let me switch back. Ta-da. And so without any further ado, actually, I think it's time for us to go ahead and get started. Hello, hello, everybody. So first things first, let's head over to Replit. Ta-da. So I'm here on my account. And as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at the 2016 total solar eclipse. Now, this happened March 9th, 2016, as I showed you guys in the little demo video. So again, let's head over back to Replit. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new Replit. And we'll be using a Python template, and we'll just call this space timelapse. I'll go ahead and create that. So we've got our Replit created. So let me give you guys a little bit more background about this workshop, what I'm aiming for it, what I'm hoping that you guys will take away from it. So most coding workshops are, websites, things like that, very beginner level stuff, the smaller things. What I want us to do today and what I want to accomplish is for us to explore more interesting programming techniques, some more interesting programming libraries, to sort of gain more exposure with Python and with what Replit is capable of doing. So let me talk a little bit more about the inspiration I had for this project. I was scrolling around on NASA's website and I found this right here. It's NASA's EPIC camera, Earth polychromatic imaging camera. And so what it does is every day, several times during the day, it will take pictures of the Earth. And you'll see right here in this bottom sort of black and white image, you'll see the Earth spinning. And that's the orientation, and this is what the Earth looks like. And so with this, I was sort of curious, is there a sort of really awesome natural phenomenon that has occurred that I've lived through that would be interesting to witness from space? And so I was immediately drawn to, again, March 2016, and it was the 9th. We have this solar eclipse. And I remember because school was out that day. And so I was like, wow, it'd be really cool for us to get a time lapse of the Earth spinning and also this sort of black shadow moving across the Earth. So there's sort of your reasoning behind why I chose this for today's workshop. Now, given this, I did a little bit of digging. I found some API endpoints. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about these. They're sort of out of the scope of what I wanted to discuss. So, don't worry about this too much. It's not really relevant to the workshop. So as I said, I discovered the API endpoints. So this API has all the image dates. This has all the images taken on that day, and then you can pull specific dates. So given all of this now, this workshop is primarily for folks who are more at the intermediate sort of level. We'll be touching upon libraries such as Request, Threading, Moviepi, Pillow. So we'll be moving between our intermediate and our more advanced territory. If you're a beginner, don't worry. I mean, I'll talk everything out as clearly, as concisely as I can. But again, primarily for our intermediate students. So given all of this, everything I've explained, everything so far, let's go ahead and actually get started writing some code, getting everything set up. So the first thing I'm going to do, since we're going to be working with these external libraries, is we have some sort of setup things that I want us to go ahead and do. The first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to create a folder called Images 2016. So I just came up here, add folder. Now, what this will be is, again, since we're doing a time lapse, we need to have all of the images saved, and we're going to save them into this folder. The next thing I'm going to add is a file called imageids.json. And again, just bear with me here. This is all of our setup stuff, our preliminary stuff. So the purpose of imageids.json, and actually let me rename this, is each image. So, sorry, maybe more specific. Every day, this camera will take multiple images. So for one day, you might have 7 images. For another day, you might have 8 images. Each of these images has their own respective ID. And you see I sort of highlighted it here. And I use this ID to pull these specific images. How did you find the endpoints? Well, I just used Chrome developer tools on this tab. And I was able to sort of sift out and figure out how everything works. So I noticed that this is where all the dates are located. So given each of these dates, if you format them, you can find all of the IDs of the images. And then given the date and the ID, you can pull the specific image. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with our code. So we have images underscore 2016 and image IDs.json. That's our setup. One more thing that we're going to need to do is I opened up into a Google tab here. We're going to use a font called Monaco. And as I showed in the demo, we're going to have sort of the date. So we need to have the right font for that. So this is the Monaco Font download. You can go ahead and download that. You get a zip file right here. And once you do that, you can come into REPL. You can go to this little 3 dots right here, upload file. And if I go to download, sorry about that, you'll get something like this. If you click on the unzip the file, you get a monaco.ttf. So make sure you have that. That's going to be very important for us to sort of put text over all of the images. Hello, Dragon Programmer. Welcome to the stream. So actually, let me go ahead and doing this. Who's hosting this? My name is Arun Patel. I am one of the Replit reps here at REPL. And I work at, or sorry, I don't work, but as I said, I'm a Replit rep. I do a lot of TikTok stuff. I go by Blue Hen Coding. So that's sort of my background. So we're going to go ahead and upload that. Oops. So we're going to upload the sort of font file. So we can, again, as I said, we can have the images that we want, or sorry, the text that we want. So monaco.ttf, and we'll open that up. Ta-da. I mean, it looks all weird and stuff, but it's there. Cool. So that's one part of our setup. The next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and install all of our dependencies. So dependencies, libraries, whatever you want to call it, these are the sort of external pieces of code that we'll be using to build our time lapse. So in REPL, again, I should have mentioned this earlier, but my Replit might look a little bit different. But in REPL, you should have a console. And in this console, what I'm going to go ahead and say is pip install requests. Oops, sorry, shell. I apologize. Pip install requests. And now what Replit is going to do is going to install this library. We'll be using the request library. We'll be using the TQDM library. We'll be using Moviepi, and we'll be using Pillow. So we have to go through and install all of these. So now we'll go pip install request. We'll say pip install TQDM. Let that go ahead and install. Bingo. Pip install Moviepi. Now Moviepi is a great library. That's what we're going to be using to sort of take all of our images and put them together. Can't you just use Replit's package manager UI? You totally can. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I'm used to the shell, and I'm glad Replit has the shell. It's just what I'm comfortable with. But again, if you are familiar with Replit's package manager UI, feel free to use that. It doesn't really make a difference. So if you've got Moviepi installed, and then I clear this so you can see up top, we'll just go ahead and install Pillow. So Pillow is what we're going to be using to take all of our images and throw that text on there. Pillow is a great library. We're going to be using it very surface level with Pillow. But again, if you want to explore more with these libraries, definitely do. They're amazing. They have great sort of documentation that's definitely worth checking out. And finally, one more piece of setup that we have to do is we're just going to go ahead and in our shell, we're going to type Ffmpeg. Now, before you go ahead and press enter, Ffmpeg is sort of a command line utility that allows you to manipulate images, concatenate them, and put them all together. And it's what our Moviepi and what our Pillow will be using. So I'll type enter, and that says command not installed. Multiple versions of this command were found on Nix. So Replit already has this installed. We just have to sort of install it one more time. So I'm just going to press enter. So Ffmpeg has been added to replit.nix. Success, it's going to do its thing, and we are done. So I'm just going to make sure I have everything. But yeah, that's basically all of our dependencies done, set, ready to go. So let's head over back to the console. Just clear this out. Okay. So just quick recap. Super quick recap. We're going to be building a space time lapse using NASA's images. I've gone ahead and sort of figured out all of the API endpoints that we'll be working with. And again, that's sort of out of the scope of what we're dealing with, but I'll explain regardless. We did some setup stuff. We put in a folder called images_2016. This is the folder we're going to be putting in all of our images. I created a JSON file called image IDs, and I'll discuss this a little bit later on. And finally, we downloaded this Monaco font and brought it into Replit. We went ahead and installed requests, TQDM, Moviepi, and Pillow, and we installed Ffmpeg. So quick check-in, are we all good up until this point with our dependencies and everything like that? If so, then I can sort of go ahead and explore the logic behind the code that we're going to start writing. All right. I'm not seeing any questions, but again, stop me at any time. So before we go ahead and sort of embark on this programming journey, let's talk logic. How are we going to make this whole thing work? So let's outline the problem a little bit. We want to take NASA images, right? We want to download NASA images, and then we want to concatenate them, put them together into a time lapse. Okay? So now within these sort of general ideas and processes that we're working through, let's sort of narrow down our scope. So we're going to take our NASA images. Well, we're going to specifically work around March 9th, 2016. So we want to work around March 9th, 2016. That'll help us sort of zoom in or zone in, hone in on our date. And we're going to be using our API endpoints. All right, and these are the API endpoints that I'll discuss, that I'll paste in the chat so you guys can get them. Download our NASA images. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be using our request library to do this. We have our request library. And as I stated, that's going to get saved to this images_2016 folder. So saved to images_2016. And then to concatenate them, we're going to go through, add dates to all of the images, and then combine them using Moviepi. General overview. With that in mind, let's tackle our first objective. Take our NASA images. So as I mentioned, I did a little bit of digging when I found this website, and I came across this API endpoint here. I'll go ahead and paste it into the chat. Hopefully it shows up for you guys. There we go. Now, what this API endpoint does is it tells us all of the days which the NASA Epic camera has taken pictures on. So as you can see, October 10th, it took pictures. October 9th, it took pictures. October 8th, it took pictures. October 7th, it took pictures. October 6th. And if we scroll all the way to the bottom, we can see that I was taking pictures all the way back in 2015. So we have lots of photos to go through. Now, we have all of the days it's taking pictures, and we know that on a certain day, it can take multiple pictures. So what we need to do is we need to take these days right here, right? And we're going to use them to determine all of the image IDs, image names. So if I take this date right here, 2022, October 10th, I'm going to come right here, and I'm going to paste this, and I'm going to remove all of my dashes. Now, what this sort of snippet of code tells me here is all of the IDs, all of the images that were taken that day. And again, it's a little bit hard to sort of look at. I mean, it's a lot of text. So just bear with me here. So I'll paste this into chat as well, so you guys can sort of explore that, check it out. And finally, in order to download this image, in order to pull it up, we need to take the image name. So I'll take this and the image date and put them into this format right here. So you see we have the epic whatever.jpg. Now we have this, and we did 2010, we did October 10th. Boom. Again, I'll paste this in chat as well, so you can explore that. So logic-wise, what we need to do is we need to go through all of our dates, right? Every single one. Get the ones that are closest to March 9th, 2016, and then pull up for each of those dates close to March 9th. We need to get all of the image IDs and then download all of those images. So let's start off small. Let's start off with a simple function that's just going to go ahead and get all of the days. So I'm here in Replit. Let me actually zoom in a little so it's a little easier to see. So again, we're going to define a function called getAllDates. Now the URL we're going to be calling from is this URL I posted in chat, the first one, epic.gsfc.nasa.gov API natural all. And this is the API we're going to call. So we're going to actually use our request library for this. So I'm going to say import requests, right? And we're going to say our our response is going to be our requests.get URL. So basically what our request library is doing is it's going to say, hey, Python, I want you to pull up all of this stuff. It's just like I've opened a new browser tab. I want all of this, all of these dates accessible within my code. So in order to access this data, I'm going to say response.json. If I print this out, print data, and I call this function getAllDates, when we run our REPL, we get literally the same thing we did as if we had just opened up the browser tab. But now it's in JSON, and now it's in our code. So we can go ahead and do is parse it, make it look good, pull out the important information we need, which are just these specific dates. Now, what we're going to say is, here we are, data. So we have this list that has a bunch of dates, okay? So we're going to make a for loop. We're going to call this valid days. Because again, let's just say we want all the days in 2016. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say for date in data, right? So I'm going to iterate over each of these dictionaries. Actually, let me use a better name. For what's a good name for this? We're iterating over a dictionary. I don't want to call it date because then the key name is also date. Let's say we'll just tell this for piece. For piece and data, we're going to print each piece. If I run this now, oops, not pience, piece. If I run this now, I get all of the dates, right? Just like that, properly formatted. And again, these are all dictionaries. So if I just wanted the dates, I can use the date key and boom. So we have all of our dates. And again, we only want the ones in 2016. So the best way to check it is to just say, actually, let's create a variable. We'll call this date is equal to this. So we get this saved to a variable. We'll say if our date, we're going to use a little bit of string indexing here, 0, 1, 2, 3, is equal to, 4 is equal to 2016, print 8. If I run this now, I'm only printing out the dates in 2016. So to explain what I sort of did here, let me actually just go back and rewind a bit. There we go. I had my Python code checked to basically say that if these first 4 characters are 2016, then I want you to print that out. Otherwise, leave it alone. Don't do anything with it. So let me bring that back. If, actually, we had the variable date is equal to, if date 4 is equal to 2016, print 8. Right? We have all of our 2016 days. And again, these are all valid days. So we're going to say valid days.append date. So all of the days that the NASA Epic camera has taken an image in 2016 is going to get added to our list called valid days. Now, what we need to really do is sort of narrow it down. We don't want all of the days. We just sort of want our time lapse to sort of encompass, let's say from, the 1st of March, the later part of February to the end of March, right? Because March 9th is the golden spot that we really, really want. So what we can actually go ahead and do to discover that golden sweet spot that we want to use is we'll say for date in valid days, print date. Index in enumerate valid days, print date, and the index. So we can see where that date is within our list. And actually, what's interesting about this is that we're starting from December and working our way down to January. I don't like that. So what we're actually going to go ahead and do is we're going to make this -1. So it's in reverse. So if we run this now, we go from January down to December. Okay. So now we can find the sort of period of days using the index that we want to use to get our perfect time lapse. So the ideal day is March 9th, right? So it's at index 62. So let's write that down somewhere. March 9th is index 62. Now I want to say, let's say we want to go from the end of February to the 13th, right? Just a couple days after the solar eclipse happens. So we're going to go from the end of February is the 53rd index, so 53, to, we want to go to the 13th, 66. These date indice ranges are what we're going to be using to get the specific dates we want. So with that in mind, I can actually get rid of this because this was just for testing purposes. I can print valid days. Actually, I can say for day in valid days, and I can put in 53 to 67 because again, Python goes up to but doesn't include that last one. We'll print our day. If I go ahead and do that, now we're going from the end of February up until March 13th, and March 9th sort of falls in a nice spot there. We have this sort of period of time where we can observe the Earth spinning and all that stuff. So we've gotten the dates that we need. That's what we need with our dates. So we're sort of done working with this API endpoint. So we're going to go ahead and do is we're just going to say return valid days, yada, yada, yada. So that is the function that'll get all of the raw, unformatted dates that we're going to be pulling our images from. Now, let's move on to our next endpoint, which is this one right here. It's the second link that I sent. And what you'll notice with this endpoint is that it is not the same every time you call it. Every time you call it, you can pass in a different date. And you'll notice that this one is formatted in the form of year, month, day with no dashes in between like we have in our code. So we'll have to address that when we get there. So given the date, we can then go ahead and pull all of the image IDs. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to save those image IDs, to our image IDs.json file. So let's make another function. We're going to call this get image IDs at. And the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is load all of the days that we're going to be working with. So we're going to say dates is equal to get all dates. As you can see, this will return these days right here. Now, the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to create a dictionary. And this dictionary is going to be date to images. Now, the purpose of this is that I have one day with multiple different image IDs. So a dictionary is really the best way to keep track of it, because I can use a date as a key and then have all of the associated image IDs with it. So as I mentioned, the first step actually, before we go ahead and do anything, is to format our dates. Because again, they're saved like this, right, with these dashes and everything. But when you access the API, those dashes are gone. You just have 2022, 10, 10. So we need to get rid of these dashes. So let's make a for loop. For date in dates, we're going to say formatted date equal to date dot replace. And a dot replace is a string method that's going to take these dashes and replace them with nothing. We're going to get rid of them. So we're going to say, hey, Python, take these dashes and then get rid of them. Replace them with nothing. If I go ahead and print out my formatted date now, I'll call this get image. Get image IDs function. If I run this now, see all of my dates. While they are a little hard to read, they have been formatted. And actually copy one of them. Let's paste it into our endpoint. So you can sort of, hopefully you guys are able to sort of see how we could sort of piecing this together bit by bit. So we've got our formatted date. The next thing we need to do is, well, make a request to the URL. So every URL is now going to be different because, again, for every date, this sort of end part will change. So we're actually going to go ahead and copy this front part. And again, this is the second link in chat. We're going to say boom, boom. Make this a string, actually. Let's move this to the side a bit. And we're going to make this an F string. Now, the only thing that's missing is we just need to throw in that formatted date right there. And again, as we're going in a for loop, that formatted date variable will constantly be changing. So boom, boom. So on our first iteration, this is what's going to be at the end. Second iteration, this is what's going to be at the end. Third iteration, that's what it's going to be at the end. And you can sort of see with that. And so for each date, we'll get a different series of image IDs. So you see we have one here, another one here, another one here. So on this day, I think there was about 4 pictures taken. So let's actually go ahead and then call that. So it's the same sort of thing we did right here. We can actually copy this. Let's paste that. We'll say response is equal to request.get URL, and data is equal to response.json. So let's print out the data now. Run this. Let's take a look. So again, we're printing our formatted date. So this was this date. And again, that's all of the, it's still loading, but you see the point. I'm loading my date, and then I'm loading this associated entire block of text. And since we brought it into Replit, we can now go ahead and, similar to what we did with this API endpoint, we can parse it. We can pull out the important information that we need. So I printed the data. It didn't look too clean, so we're actually going to be using this part to help us reference. We have a list indicated by this. So we're going to say for image info in data print. Actually, we're going to say, so we have this dictionary now. Where is it? There it is. Oh, wrong one. And we're going to use this image key to get the image ID. We're going to print image info, and the key we're going to be using is called image. If I print this alongside its date, I run this, you guys can see all of the dates being loaded up, as well as all of the images for those dates loaded up. So we have February 29th. That day we had 4 images taken. The 1st of March, we had a lot more taken. And so these are all of the images taken on the specific day. So with that being said, we can now go ahead and use our dictionary to sort of store these. So actually, let's save all of our images, right? We want to save all of them. We'll call them images. And we'll say images.append that. Okay, and the last thing we need to do is we're going to say date to images. And the key is going to be this date, right? This day right here. And the value is going to be all of these images. So you bear with me here, and I'll go ahead and at the end, I'll print out date to images. And if I run that, it'll go through each of these days quickly. And then once it hits the 13th, we'll get all of our data. Boom. So let's look at this. It's a lot, so I'm just going to open up our console all the way and actually zoom out a little. So this is a key, right? The date. And then the value is a list of all of the image IDs. So we've organized our information into something that's easier for us to read. So you're going to have another date right here as a key. The associated value, on the other hand, is a list of all of the image IDs. So I'm going to clear our console, move this back to the side, and zoom back in so it's a little easier to see. So we have all of our image IDs now. What I'm actually going to go ahead and do is save them to a file, imageids.json. And this is just so that later on, if you want to come back to this, you don't have to rerun any of this code again because, you know, it took a little bit of time. It's good to have this sort of thing saved. So in order to save this, again, it's a JSON file, right? We're going to import the well-named JSON library. So we have our huge dictionary. And again, the thing about JSON and the JSON libraries, it's really easy to work with. So in order to save it, we're going to say with open we're going to open this image IDs. So image IDs.json. And we're going to open it in write mode. That's what the W stands for. As a file. We're going to dump all of our date to images data to images into that file. Okay. So again, this is blank right now. I'm going to run this. And hopefully when I run it, it'll do its thing, it'll do its magic, and we'll get a nice, fully fleshed out JSON file. So let me go ahead and run that. It's going through all the dates. Cool, cool, cool. .13th. Cool. We have our prompts. So that means we're done. Let's open up our files. Ta-da! So as you can see, all of that data of the date as well as all of the image IDs has been saved to this file, and it's easier for us to pull it up later. So we have taken on our first API endpoint, our second API endpoint, and we have defeated them. Now we have to work on our last API endpoint. Now this should be a cakewalk, because what have we done? Our third API endpoint, which is the third link I've posted in chat, takes the image ID as well as the date. Those are the two things you need. Well, those are the two things we have. We have all of our images, our image dates, as well as our image IDs. So I can literally take one of these days, we'll say 2016, February 29th. And you'll notice that here they have it formatted a little differently. So let me paste that. And we'll replace all of our dashes with, our slashes. So I'll do that. I think I messed something up, actually. We'll replace all of our dashes with some slashes. And then let's just take a random ID. Take that, and then we'll pop that in right here. And boom, an image popped up. So this was Epic 1B, 201, 602, 290, whatever, taken on 2016, February 29th. So we have what we need. So now we need to take on that next, our next image, our next API endpoint. So what we're going to do is, again, let's get rid of this function call right here. We're going to create a function, actually, a very specific function. And what this function is going to do is we're going to actually just make it to download one image. Okay? And this will actually help make our code look more readable and whatnot. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to create a function called download image. And what this image will do, it'll take the URL as well as the, actually, wait a minute. That's not what I want to do. Restart. We're going to create a function that's basically going to call it, we'll just call this download images. Download images. We're going to use our information from our image IDs.json, as well as our knowledge of how this API endpoint functions to pull up all these images and download them. And it doesn't look like too much, actually. So we'll say download images. And so the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to have to access all of the image IDs that we saved, right? So again, we're still using our JSON library. And we're going to say with open image IDs, sure it's a capital D. That's right, Lena. I mean, seriously, it's beautiful. And once the final time lapse comes out, you can actually see, the Earth spinning and all that stuff. And it's also great because if you, again, because I've worked on this project for a while, but if you make the time lapse across the whole year and you scrub through it really quickly, you can actually see the Earth moving in and out. It gets bigger and it gets smaller, which is, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, it's awesome. So image IDs.json is the file that we're going to open. We're going to open it in read mode as file. And the data is going to be, we're going to ask, hey, JSON, can you load that file up for me? But let's just double check and make sure all that works. We're going to print out our data. Let's say download images. We have our function here. Let me run this. And as you can see, it is practically identical. Not practically, it is identical to our, our JSON file. So everything is working just fine. So let's head back over to our code. Let me get rid of this part right here. We have all of our data loaded. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to say we have our dictionary, right? So we have to go through each of the values as well as the image IDs. So we'll say for date as well as the image IDs in data.items. So this is a dictionary method that will load both of our keys alongside their associated values. .items. If I print out date and I print out image IDs, you can see I get the date as well as the ID. Now, before we go ahead and actually do that, you'll notice that the date has to be formatted here. So instead of our dashes, we're moving into our slashes, which is really catchy. So the first step, we're going to do another formatted date. We're going to say date.replace. And we're going to get rid of these dashes, replace them with slashes. So dashes replaced with slashes. So our date has been formatted. The next thing we need to do, since this is a list, is we can just say for image ID in image IDs, we can then generate our URL, right? So the URL, in this case, copy this, boom. So this is the third link I've posted. And let's close the console so this all fits. Let me zoom out a little bit as well. Yeah, so we have our formatted date, we have our image ID. So the image ID is going to go right here. We're going to call this image ID. And then our date is going to go right here. So it's just what I was showing you guys in the browser with my URL. We're just taking our information and just cutting it and pasting it in, and we should get our image. So this is going to be where our formatted date will go. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is then print out this URL so you guys can see we have the URLs generated for all of these. So if I start clicking on them, boom, space picture. Boom, next space picture. These are all valid space pictures. They all work. It's beautiful. It's amazing. So the next thing we need to do is, hey, we have the URL for all these images. We need to go ahead and download them. All right, we need to download them. We need to give them a name, and we need to save them to our images _ 2016. So we're going to say is, we're actually going to come up here, back up here, and we're going to say counter. Because the easiest way to name these files is to just give them a number, right? So I'll use my counter as my number. So the first thing I'm going to say is, okay, let's get the image. So I'm going to say img, short for image, is going to be our requests dot get our special URL. We're going to access the content from that. Now what we're going to do is with open, we're going to open our images _ 2016 folder. So we'll say images _ 2016. And I'm going to put, instead of saying counter, let's call this file number. Say file number, oops. And then dot JPEG, because these are all JPEGs at the end. And we're going to put this in write mode as well. As file, we're going to put file.write image. So what this is going to do is our request library is going to get all of the bits and the zeros and the ones from these images, and our file manager is just going to save that. So once we do that, actually, let's run this and we can actually get a quick demo of it working out. And actually, I'm going to actually import our TQDM library because this might take a while. But depending on what TQDM tells us and our time constraints, I'll adjust as necessary. Where do I want to put that? There we go. TQDM. So TQDM is basically what's going to generate a loading screen for us so we can see the progress that our code is making. So let's run this. And as this runs, it should start filling up our images folder. And actually, we need to also say file number. We increment it by 1 so it doesn't sort of replace the same file over and over again. So, okay, TQDM, oops, download images. Am I missing something here? Let's get rid of this then. I think our TQDM might be screwing us up. Try this. There we go. So if I open our images, boom, our images are slowly popping in. So I guess TQDM wasn't the way to go. But hey, all of our images are populating. Again, if we go to imageids.json, which is slowly getting pushed to the bottom, oops, I missed it again. Oh my goodness. There we go. All these image IDs are individual images. So I can't say a rough estimate of how many images we have, but we have a decent amount in here. So we'll actually let that go ahead and continue downloading. Given the time constraints I have right now, oh hey, welcome to the stream, Barney. Sorry, but given the time constraints we have with today's stream, I don't think I'll have time to show you guys how I added the text. That's all right. I mean, this Replit is public. You can find it on my profile, so not to fret. But all these images are being downloaded slowly but surely. And as that's happening, the last thing we really need to work on is just putting it all together. That's literally our last element. So what we're going to do is we're going to create one more function. Call this create video. And what you might notice is the sort of code structure I've gone with here is less of everything flows into another thing. And it's more of a scripting structure. But hey, it's all about the final product, right? So we have our create video function. And hard to gauge. I think, are we 149? Okay, so we've got all of our images uploaded. Perfect. So actually, let me come back. Here, where is it? There it is. Boom. So what we need to do is we need to say Python. These are all of the names of all of the files that we have. Okay, how do we do that? Well, I'm going to create a list called all clips. And what I'm going to have in this all clips list is the sort of path to each of these images. I'm going to say for I in range 0 to 150. Let me show you what I'm doing here. Let me print I out. So you'll notice that all the numbers I printed out directly correlate to the names of all of the images. And that's why I said having the image just be an increasing or incrementing number just makes it a lot easier for us to work with. So given that, we know that our images are saved right here at images_2016 at file number.jpg. So let's copy that. And we'll say image path is equal to this. Just replace this with I, boom, boom. And then we'll say all clips dot append image path. If I run this now, oh, actually, I got to print it out too. Print all clips. If I run this now, you get all of this. Actually, a really cool pattern. But we get all of the images. So we have images 2016. We have 41.jpg. That's an example. Works great. So we have all of our clips lined up. The last thing we need to do is we're going to import Moviepi. So we're going to say import moviepi.editor as MP. So MP is sort of a shorthand way of referencing this editor library. So we'll come down here. We'll say, hey, our final video is going to be mp.image sequence clip of all clips, and we're going to put it at, well, we'll say 30 FPS. We have about 150 images, so if we do 30 FPS, we'll get about 5 seconds worth of footage. I mean, we don't have that many photos, to be honest. There's thousands if you think about it. So we're going to just take all these images and put them into a sequence, right? That's what we have all clips, and it's going to be at 30 frames per second. So we're going to say final video. We're going to write our video file to earth timelapse.mp4. Yeah, I think that's it, really. So we have all of our images set. We have our code written. Let's do it. So Replit is going to go ahead and add Moviepi, and it's going to get started. There we go. We have our little loading bar right there. It's moving through all of our images. And boom, building video, earth timelapse.mp4, writing video, earth timelapse.mp4, Moviepi done, video ready. All right, folks, let's take a look. I mean, if it's too fast, we can always come back in here and tweak it around. Okay, 5 seconds as I predicted. So you can see the earth is spinning really fast, so maybe we should slow it down a little bit. Oh, there you go. Y'all saw that? The solar eclipse moves right across. Sorry, let's play the whole thing and I won't interrupt. It's so cool how the earth is spinning so fast. And then as we get to the solar eclipse, it slows down just enough for you to just see it moving across. Right, just like that. So we do have some time. So let's tinker around with our FPS and see if we can sort of find a sweeter spot. Let's slow it down a little bit, see what that yields us. Yeah, it is sick, guys. And seriously, we're only working with a really small set of photos. If you think about it, there's been tons of solar eclipses. There's been lunar eclipses. You get the point. If you sort of made this across all of the different years that NASA has, you'd be looking at a really cool video. So I think we finished up again on the 20 FPS. Let's check this one out. 7 seconds. Yeah, I think I like 20 FPS slow a little bit better. It's slower, so you can sort of make all of the. I mean, you can. It's cut up, right? It's not like a perfect rotation. You can still make up, like, Africa is moving, and then it comes back around in that sort of circular fashion. And let me actually slow it down one more time. Let's do 15. Here's my Replit has disconnected. Oh no. But if we slow it down, I think we'll get just the right sweet spot. And actually, I think we're fine the way we are. Let me get Replit a little reload here. But yeah, so we've sort of taken all of these sort of intermediate level elements, if you will, the request library, Moviepi. I would have loved to show you guys Pillow, but unfortunately, due to time, that wasn't viable. But piecing them all together with our list, we've created sort of like a beautiful masterpiece. I mean, it looks absolutely fantastic the way it came out. And it appears like Replit is being a little cranky right now. But hopefully, if you guys were following along, you were able to get the code. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know. I mean, we're coming to nearing the end of our stream. So any questions, technical about the things I covered and whatnot, I would love to answer that. And I hope you guys enjoyed the stream, really. It was my first one, so I was a little nervous. Yeah, Replit took a little break. We were working hard, so Replit just needs a little time to breathe. It might just be my network, to be fair. It's a little cloudy outside. But yeah, I'm not seeing any questions. Again, thank you guys so much. This is like my first event here as a Replit rep. And you guys were really kind. You guys were awesome. So I do appreciate the love. And I hope to see you guys later this month or maybe next month for my next event. Not sure what I'll do. Maybe we'll do something with esoteric programming languages, something a little bit more interesting. But I definitely do appreciate the kindness. I definitely do appreciate the participation. Again, if you want to access the code, VarunPatel12 is the username. You can find everything there. There's two versions. There's the version we worked on. And there's a little bit more of a complex version that you can also check out. So yeah, guys, seriously, thank you so much. And I hope to see you guys in the next stream. Bye-bye. Oh, a Replit link. Oops, I am so sorry. Here, let's actually, again, as I mentioned, I have two versions. I have sort of the well done, good programming conventions with the multi-threading, as well as putting the image numbers or the image dates on there. That's the first link. And then the second link is the one we put together right here. Again, it's missing the dates, and it's not threaded out, but it still works just fine. But yeah, guys, if you have any questions, hopefully you guys can reach out to me through Replit. I think I'm not forgetting anything. Hopefully not. We got the Replit links. Yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, guys, I hope to see you guys in my next broadcast or my next stream. And thank you so much.